Greetings and salutations, this is Jason Silverain, and today is a very quick and dirty video as I cover two games by Zodiacus Games. Now these are very simple, they're just spot the difference games, and they're the kind of game that really should be on somewhere like Newgrounds. But Steam opened the gates, and here we are. They're both very cheap at 79p each. Both made in 2019 within a few months of each other, May and October respectively, and they both have some very easy achievements for anyone who likes to build up their 100% achievements rating on their Steam profile. Now to quickly go into it, the first game originally only had 12 stages. It had a free DLC that added another 6, so now you've got 18. The second game has no free DLC, so it's still only 12 stages. As you can see, the artwork is acceptable. It's not terrible as some adult games are bound to do, but it's very over-exaggerated in the chest and in the hips. And of course, I can't go into too much detail because, well, I don't want to get my channel banned or get strikes, but the first game is very simple. It does have one or two minor issues in that, how to explain it, its rules are not very consistent. Now, I rather like the HUD for this, and the game would have benefited from more than one song or soundtrack. As you can see, some of the differences are very subtle, and mechanically, I can at least say the dev has at least put things like advice in, is giving it a non-offensive soundtrack. The HUD's nice. They've actually put an effort in, apart from maybe these glasses which look like they've been taken from a Photoshop and just hammered in there, but most of the actual differences are rather mild and awkward to spot. Now, see, that one is a good example where it's just a slightly different earring, and if you're not on board and know about it, you wouldn't see it. But this is basically how things go. The levels do get more difficult, and when I say rules are not consistent, in the first level you see a lot of stuff in the background. As you go through these levels, some of them will have absolutely nothing to find in the background at all. And there'll be others where it's almost consistently entirely in the background. Now, there's also the usual suspects, so many of them will have rings, an earring, a few odds and ends that you always want to check. So you can get through this game in maybe 45 minutes, only slowed because you've got to go back to the menu every time you finish a level, and some of the differences can be a bit obtruse. There's one or two that are quite unfair where it's a single tiny line missing, or the shading is only just different. And there was one where I was just like, I'm trying to do this without using the hint system once, and I cannot see it whatsoever. And it turned out that it was just a slightly different shade of brown, which I could not tell because I don't have my lights on in my room, so my monitor's a little dark right now. But this is it in a nutshell. It's not terrible. It's not fantastic, and if you're really looking for material, you could probably go on the internet and find it faster. But for 79p, they're not asking a lot, and I can't really blame them. Now on to the second game. And here we are. Now, in my opinion, the game is a classic example of 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Mechanically, it's a vast improvement, and I'll go into that in just a moment, but visually, I think the first game was a lot better. I mean, these pictures, a lot more concise in this frame, a little less confusing to actually go between them and do the matches. But the artwork for the characters, which is the main draw, it's not as good. It's a bit rougher, and again, very exaggerated. I like the fact there's like a fancy theme, a sci-fi theme, a little bit of everything, but it's just not high quality. Going into it now, mechanically it's much better. Each level now has theme-appropriate music. they've tightened the areas around each object to find, meaning that it's much harder to brute force, which some people may think that's a disadvantage, but I'm just looking at it from a mechanical sense in terms of gameplay. This HUD, not as good as the previous games. I mean, it could be clear just how much you want to find and stuff. I just thought the last one was a lot better. And one thing I have to say for both games, they don't just make the stuff to find like a non-issue. They actually put some thought into the differences, and some of them are very good. The second game has less cheap ones where it's just a slightly, slight line missing here or a slight colour shading difference. No, they actually thought more about what they were doing. So, again, improvements in that regard. Now, I will say that having to click on such a small area for things like this is a pain. But overall, pretty decent. Again, compared to its predecessor. But if this interests you, go for it. If not, then this was just a quick look into the nature of game. If you've got any more questions, I'll try to answer them in the comments. And thank you for watching.